These are the series rules to Days of Glory. This is the 1814 version, designed by Frederick Bay. So, Chapter 9, Cavalry Charge. The charging is the most effective way for a cavalry unit to engage in melee combat. A charge can never be evaded. The only possible reactions to a charge are forming square for infantry, which we will talk about, and countercharge for cavalry, which we will also talk about. The separate steps of a cavalry charge are performed in the following order. Charge movement. We have charge declarations, which is coming. Engagement test for cavalry units having no orders. Charge movement. Possible attempt to form square by the defender. Possible recall attempt by charging cavalry. Charge resolution. Possible countercharge attempt. Possible reaction fire, same procedure discussed earlier. Resolution of the charge. Possible pursuit. End of charge cohesion test. All very interesting. Sounds very interesting. All right, charge restrictions. The unit being attacked must be in the line of sight of the front hexes of the charging unit before its movement begins. Let's be in the line of sight. Okay. The charging unit must not be disordered or routed. Charges are declared during the current activation's movement segment. Place a charge marker on the charging unit. If an engagement test is required, that is for units with no orders, it is performed during charge movement. If the unit fails its engagement test, it remains in place and cannot engage in combat. The charging unit must move at least one hex. The charging unit cannot move farther than its reduced movement rate, as described earlier in Chapter 4. A cavalry unit adjacent to an enemy unit may leave that unit's ZOC by expending one movement point and then charge without changing its original facing, that is, the facing it had when it was in the enemy ZOC. The charging unit is not allowed to pass through or stop in a hex containing a friendly artillery unit during its charge movement. The types of terrain which block charges are listed on the terrain effects chart. A charge cannot begin in or pass through these types of terrain, nor can the target of a charge be in these types of terrain. Likewise, a charging unit is not allowed to cross a hex side where a bridge crosses a river, nor may it cross a slope, steep slope, crest redoubt, or fortification hex side during charge movement, or charge a unit located on the other side of these types of hex side. Note, the restrictions on charges do not apply to shock combat by cavalry. A cavalry unit may, for example, perform shock combat without charging against a village with a negative die roll modifier of -3, -2 for the shock combat by cavalry, and -1 for the village. That's the example. Okay, charge effects. The combat is resolved during the charging cavalry. Again, the combat is resolved between the charging cavalry and all enemy units located in its front hexes, plural. The attacking player rolls 1d10 and applies the modifiers listed in the terrain table, the odds table, and the die roll modifiers for shock or charge table. These modifiers are cumulative with exceptions. The combat result is given by the shock and charge table. These modifiers are cumulative with any arising from an attack in combination with infantry, exception. They are not added together if the defender is in square. In that case, apply the -2 DRM due to the charge. At the end of a charge, all participating cavalry units make individual cohesion tests. In case of failure, they are disordered, in addition to all the other disorder results which may have been produced during the combat resolution. Squares and charges, forming square. Infantry units located in clear terrain that are the targets of a charge and are not in disorder or routed may attempt to form square to protect themselves even if they are in an enemy ZOC. Exception. A unit in square which recoils after a charge and hence loses its square formation cannot attempt to get back into square for the resolution of the resulting pursuit. Artillery cannot put itself in square unless it is stacked with infantry. In that case, it conforms to what the infantry does. The owning player rolls a die before resolution of the charge. If the die roll is equal to or lower than the infantry unit's cohesion rating, or the cohesion rating of every infantry unit in a stack, when you have a stack, the unit or stack is able to form square, place a carré or square marker on it. If the die roll is higher than the infantry unit's cohesion rating, or higher than that of at least one infantry unit in a stack, the unit or stack cannot form square. In addition, the infantry unit which failed its CT is disordered. All infantry units are disordered in the case of a stack. Okay. Effects on a square, or effects of a square. Cavalry does not receive any of the advantages of a charge when charging a square. Instead, a die roll modifier of -2 is applied to the combat. Reaction fire by an artillery unit stacked with infantry that had formed square beforehand is penalized by a -1 to its fire die roll. The fire die roll must occur after the attempt to form square, in addition to the usual -1 for reaction fire. Recall of cavalry. If the target has succeeded in forming square, the cavalry may try to halt its charge. The owning player makes an engagement test for the unit or stack of units. If it passes the engagement test, the unit is recalled. It does not charge, but recoils instead 1 hex back from the target and changes facing as desired. But it may not recoil into a front hex of an enemy unit. It remains in place without charging. If it fails the engagement test, it must charge. In the case of units in a stack, only the top unit makes the engagement test, and the result is applied to the entire stack. Clarification: when cavalry recall succeeds, there is no charge and therefore no end of charge cohesion test is required. Countercharge. If the target of the charge or pursuit is a cavalry unit which is neither disordered nor routed, and which is being charged through one of its front hexes, it may attempt to countercharge. The unit makes an engagement test before resolution of the original charge and adds a DRM of +2 if it is a non-heavy cavalry countercharging heavy cavalry. This is the only case in which this DRM is used. Okay. If it passes the ET, the engagement test, the countercharge succeeds and the attacker resolves the combat without benefit of the bonus of the initial charge. If it fails the engagement test, there is no countercharge and the charge is resolved as described already in the normal charge procedure. Note, in case of pursuit, which actually we're getting to next, the unit may attempt further countercharges, plural, as long as it remains in good order and is being charged through one of its front hexes. In the case of units in a stack, only the top unit makes the engagement test, and the result is applied to the entire stack. In the case of a successful countercharge, if the attacking unit recoils or retreats after combat, it may be pursued. A unit that pursues following a countercharge is under the same restrictions as the one that charges. All right, now pursuit. Definition of pursuit. If the cavalry charge results in the defender vacating its hex by recoil, retreat, or elimination, pursuit is required even if the fleeing unit is no longer in line of sight of the pursuing cavalry. The pursuit effects are the same as those of a charge. A cavalry unit which is attacked is allowed to pursue the attacking unit in the following cases. And for this, see the shock and charge table that's on the player aid sheet. The combat result authorizes a pursuit, the attacker recoils or retreats, and the countercharge attempt succeeds. Now we have our restrictions on pursuit. The pursuit restrictions are the same as those for charges, except that in ET, an engagement test, is not required for a unit with no orders, and reduced movement no longer applies. If only one stack of units performs the charge, the player has two options. He may perform the pursuit with the unit having the highest cohesion rating in the stack, owner's choice in case of a tie for highest cohesion rating, or he may perform the pursuit with the entire stack. If several stacks of units are charging, the stack containing the unit with the highest cohesion rating must perform the pursuit, owner's choice in case of a tie for highest cohesion rating. Two units from two separate stacks that have participated in the same combat may not be selected to perform the pursuit. Exception: a heavy cavalry unit or stack containing at least one heavy cavalry unit, even if it does not have the highest cohesion rating, has priority for pursuit. If a stack of units is performing pursuit, it conducts that pursuit all the way to the end. The units must remain stacked when the pursuit is finished. A cavalry unit which pursues may change facing by a maximum of one hex side per hex moved through in the direction of the unit being pursued. If it does make this facing change, it must then have the pursued unit's hex of recoil or retreat in one of its front hexes. If the defender recoils or retreats, that is routed, the cavalry which charged it pursues it, following the path of recoil or retreat and ignoring the effects of Zocs that concern movement, until it is adjacent to the unit being pursued, or until it has another enemy unit in its front hexes, whichever occurs first. If the defenders, this is another long procedure that you would want to have next to you for the first several times that you're executing these things. If the defender is eliminated, the cavalry which charged advances into the vacated hex and may change facing by one vertex and continue to charge enemy units located in its front hexes unless the unit eliminated is an artillery unit. The pursuing cavalry must pursue the last unit charged, owner's choice if several units qualify, even if it is not the unit that was originally pursuing, originally pursuing. A hex containing terrain that is impassable for cavalry or terrain in which charging is prohibited halts the pursuit even if it contains a road or trail. Unlike breakthrough shot combat, there is no limit to the number of times that pursuit and new charges can occur in the course of the same activation. The game has long turns of simulated time. And new charges can occur in the course of the same activation. However, each time a pursuing unit charges again, a DRM of -1, which is cumulative, is applied to the shot combat die roll, starting with the second pursuit charge. Clarification: for the initial charge and the first pursuit charge, the -1 DRM is not applied. After that, apply the DRM as follows: for the second pursuit, -1, third pursuit, -2, fourth pursuit, -3, etc. Cavalry which pursues must charge every enemy unit which is located in its front hexes after its pursuit movement and which is in a terrain type into which charging is permitted in addition to the retreating unit. But a charge may be halted voluntarily when a unit other than the one being pursued is in one of the pursuing cavalry's front hexes. The end of charge cohesion test is made when the pursuit ends.